Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish, here to welcome you back to the circle, to this podcast. I hope that your week has been full of grace, of marvel, of wonder, and of ease. I'm so happy you're back because this has been a topic that I want to share and teach. It is something that you hear me or see me do all the time in this circle or in my classes, and that is the 3 breaths. Now, this is a technique, a meditation that I developed after gathering 40 years of plus of knowledge. And it is something that I teach to all my students, that I practice all the time. And I wanted to give you a background on the 3 breaths and why, the intention behind it. The story of the 3 breaths might seem simple. The story of the 3 breaths is really the story of creation, colonization, and remembrance. First, we're going to go over breath and its importance. And even though you've heard this before, sometimes it's good to just hear it again. Breathing is something that we do sometimes without intention, direction, accountability, or even focus. We kind of just breathe and forget what a miracle each breath is. There are some circles and tribal bases and people that believe that you are born with a certain amount of breaths in your life. And I want to pause there, because if you grew up that way, your relationship to breath, which is life, will be very different than someone who has not been taught that. It seems simple, but many times we have cognitive biases that makes us think what I believe and what I have experienced is the same as you, so we think the same. And what happens is there's cognitive dissonance. And so I find many times the bridges that we need to create, we need to sometimes constantly be asking the question, in this case, how do you breathe? We all understand the importance of breath, to the point that even in many languages, the word for exhale means dying. There are many articles, whether they are scientific, whether they are meditative, that talk about breath. There are many studies that have been done teaching people about the importance of focused breath and how it calms the nervous system, how it signals to the body to activate certain things and regulate. But even beyond that scientific, biological conversation of breath and how it relates to all of the systems, even Scientific American wrote an article that spoke about the story of breath as it relates to the discovery of breath as a practice, as a vital thing, not just because we need it, but because it connects us. This article that you can find online even talks about the Tao religion of China and Hinduism, placing the importance on a vital principle that flows through the body. It calls it a kind of energy or internal breath. And therefore, these traditions viewed respiration as one of its manifestation. The Chinese call this energy qi, Hindus call it prana. The Greeks have a term for it. In Hebrew, the term is ruach, which means wind, breath, and spirit. So here we have an example of this thing we need to do for life that connects us beyond just our biology. It's not just about oxygen. There are many creation stories of many people where their creator breathed life into them. It is the exchange not just of oxygen here, but of life. And when we are talking in these creation stories, you have to take a pause and situate these stories into the context of the beliefs and the stories and the systems wherein life or a being meant that we are not talking about a compartmentalized being or intelligence. The breath of life in these traditions is life of the mind, the body, and the essence, because at that time they had not been separated. So now we have the story of breath, its importance biologically, its importance that it connects us more than just through our systems, our biological systems, but to this connection to spirit. I have had the honor to be able to practice yoga, and I've been doing so on and off, now a little bit more off. But there was a time in my life where I practiced every day. It became a discipline, not just of body, but that journey to really discover the connection of breath to body, to take time to consciously breathe. And yogic practices aren't the only practices out there that talk about breath. But before we continue, we need to go back a little bit. We need to remember, because as we have now taken a moment to remember that breath meant life to all of our parts and inspired all of our parts. In that beginning, in a beginning like that, when we were whole, as we zoom forward millennia from that initial breath, where there was one breath breathed into us that allowed for the connectivity of all that we are, to now where we are in a position where we need to take more than one to invite wholeness. So this part of the circle of the conversation is one about talking about how humans and societies have evolved, devolved away and gotten further away from that one breath. We are no longer in a time, in a culture where one breath is enough, because we are not supported, we are not taught to have that. If you listen to my podcast of compartmentalization, I think I called it Becoming Whole, it talks about a little bit about how this journey of becoming whole, returning to that one breath, means we must face the fact that we are not there yet. And that doesn't mean the one breath was better than the three now. It's just changing and evolving. But let's talk about this one breath. In a beginning, if you look at the mythology of many people, there just needed to be one breath. There are stories of how humans were created so similar to gods that they could stand in one place and see all the current corners of the world and the universe. They didn't really have to work. And then there are stories about how then there was a decision of separation. We must allow them to evolve, to learn. If we give them all the solutions in the beginning, we can't. Now, this is just one story. There are many stories that talk about how humans were created multiple times out of multiple things. Corn, stars, you name it. And how sometimes the creations worked and sometimes they did not. This story is the story of seeking cohesiveness. That is the storyline we are on when we enter this planet. To learn, to evolve, to seek cohesiveness, and in doing so, be able to heal, resolve, let go of past karma, lives, quote unquote mistakes, lifetimes as we evolve and change as individuals and as a culture. So in this storytelling of the creation of humans, there got to that point after a few tries, it seems, depending on what story you read, that we were united in one breath. At that time, there was no separation of the mind, of the body, or of the essence. So when did that separation start to take place? Well, one of the separations took place when the Catholic Church separated the soul from humans. It sounds dramatic, but if you look through history and through literature, even the Greeks, when they spoke about the body and the mind, there was an essence there. There was a soul. There was never a separation. A human always had these parts. It wasn't till Catholicism made the soul Catholic, made the soul only spiritual, that it separated the mind and the body from it. I'm just pausing because I'm sure this is going to bring up a lot of things for people. If you are one of my students, you have heard me tell this story, and the reason behind this, the reason for the need of the Holy Roman Empire to start dictating to people how they should believe and who they should pray to. And some of it is just logistics. If you are trying to conquer a world and you go into a place, and in the beginning, the Romans allowed people to keep their gods. So I have been taught. But then it became complicated. Too many gods. You bring in your gods into a place they have their gods, and all of a sudden you go from 8 gods to 20 gods or even more. If you are a militaristic society, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. You need order, you need ranks, and you need people to follow those orders to be able to continue your expansion. That is why, in many times, religion has been used to conquer people when war, physical war, was not enough. It is harder to kill belief than to kill a human. So now we're in a position that as humanity continues in this experiment of building societies through warfare, we must separate. So we separate the soul from the human and tell people that the only access they have back to their soul is through someone else. And the only way they can get through to their God is through someone else. You create steps to cohesiveness and wholeness. And sometimes you make it impossible that people never experience that cohesiveness again. And if someone is broken and divided, it is easier to conquer them. As we continue our story of 3 breaths and why I teach it, and it was shown to me to teach, and shown it was a vision, is that after we were separated, humanity was separated from their soul, then their mind was separated, and that's called westernization. So colonization is as early as the Holy Roman Empire, who were amazing colonizers. And then you have science and modernity separating the mind. And this, of course, has been taking place for over thousands and thousands of years. And so now that we are 3 separate parts, we need 3 breaths. It seems logical, but even myself growing up, we're taught 2 breaths, because for indigenous people, that separation of the soul, or sometimes of the mind, had not occurred. The second breath sometimes was mainly just for the time and place of the necessity, because of what we have experienced at the hand of colonizers, which is continuous genocide and warfare to this day. So that deserves 2 breaths, at least. What I found in my studies and then being told to go teach these things, that when I had conversations of cohesiveness, people didn't know what I was speaking about. And the reason being is that we have in our language right now, presently, mindfulness. And I've spoken about this before. But that, again, is just talking about one part. Even in yoga, even though there's breathing and the practice of movement and shapes, many times there is not connection that is continuously lived out beyond the yoga mat. Western society likes to keep us separate and likes to dissect old ways and teachings to fit modernity. And like I said, they dissect it because modernity means the separation of self to be able to move more quickly, to conquer more. When I realized this, I went and meditated and sat in circle in that blueprint, which is about inviting all parts of yourself. And asked circle, what do I do? People are not in a place right now where some of the things that I'm trying to teach are reaching because they are not even cognizant of the dissonance between their parts, nor are they even cognizant that there is dissonance, or even cognizant that they have different parts that are not even talking to each other. And I was bumping up against compartmentalization and wholeness, and old teachings that are about bringing all of your parts, and people that had been taught to dissect themselves as a way to be more modern, to know more, to have more. But in that quest to dissect and to quote unquote have more, you divide and conquer the person. So what I found myself starting to do is inviting people, number one, to recognize 3 of their main parts. There's many more, but it's easy to start with 3. A trinity. There are many trinities out there and many practices and traditions. So this was the trinity that I was speaking to and inviting to create cohesion, inviting it to work together, or the possibility by taking 3 intentional, separate breaths, inviting the intelligence of the mind, inviting the intelligence of the body, and inviting the intelligence of the essence. I do not use soul because of how it has been colonized. The essence to come into this time and place, to sit in circleness so we might listen and grow and go from there. There is a practice that I've been taught, that I do and that I teach to others, whereby we talk to these 3 parts, and many times it's quite amazing. No one has ever spoken to their mind before. They complain about it, but they never have actually had a dialogue or spoken to it. And I remember one time when I spoke to my mind. It was in a Bikram yoga class. And here I am, sweating so much I'm about to slide off myself, and trying to do this pose, right, where you reach your leg out at 90 degrees and then try to bend over. And my mind wouldn't be quiet. You could say I had a busy mind. which is okay, by the way. Many people think that meditation is the end of their busyness and their mind, and they think that they have to conquer it, but it's just talking to it. So instead of calming from a colonized idea of I had to conquer my mind at that time and tell it to shut up, I asked it a question. What do you want? And my mind paused. It stopped racing. And it said to me, are you talking to me? And I said, yes. You seem to be very loud. And you are distracting me as I'm trying to do this with my body. And my mind said to me, oh my gosh, you're listening to me? And I said, yes, I am now. And then I said to my mind, I'm sorry I haven't been paying attention to you, and I've been trying to not listen. You are a brilliant mind. You are capable of many, many things. And I would really like your help right now to help the body do this pose. Can you two work together to do this in a good way, in a respectful way? Body's doing pretty good. But what if we brought you in, your intelligence, to work with the intelligence of the body to be able to, quote unquote, fulfill this pose? And my mind gladly helped and was excited to participate with the body. And the body was relieved. I tell this story, and I've told this story before, because it shows how so many times we don't talk to our parts, or how many times they are not working together. When people are trying to become not just cohesive, but manifest something in this dimension of dense matter that we live in, and then they struggle, many times the conversations that come out of it are because their mind, their body, and their essence don't work together. Some don't even speak the same language. That is a very complex practice. And it's not something that everyone can lead you through or teach you. But a simple way to start that dialogue is 3 breaths. So today, as I have told you the story of why I teach 3 breaths, and I went to my teacher and introduced the 3 breaths, and they loved it, and they said, you know what? I think there's something here. I think this is the time for this. And now they have shared it with other practitioners who are now sharing it with their students. So I give you the 3 breaths for your personal practice. The teaching of it is a little bit longer than this podcast, but if you're ever interested in that, you know where to find me, on the path of Ish. That being said, it is with gratitude and grace that I invite you into a meditation of 3 breaths. And so let's take the time to be present, to settle in, to take a comfortable seat. I've had people tell me they listen to my podcast when they're driving, and I've had to pull off to do the meditation or go back. So I highly recommend do the meditations in the time and the place where you will be supported and not where you are rushing through this. Remember, some people believe our breaths are measured, are counted. So it is with that energía, that love of life in our breath, that we sink into this meditation now as you just breathe naturally and easily. And as you do, just feel, listen, enjoy breath. And let it move through you as effortlessly as many times it does. And as we're breathing, as our body is connecting us, not just biologically in our body, in our systems, but it is connecting us to spirit. Take a moment to visualize or feel that breath. To give it shape, color, or sound, dimensionality that expresses the complex nature of breath that we sometimes take for granted. One way to look at it or feel into it is a beautiful piece of art that seems very simple, but is very complex. Since many people know of the Impressionists and Monet's water lilies, it is coming forward as an image to be shared, especially to show you the symbiotic relationship that breath has within us, outside us, and as part of our body and our mind and our essence. And with that beautiful picture, that image of those water lilies in an environment where they are relying on all, holding all, being uniquely themselves, yet part of something greater. We take our 3 breaths and invite our parts, and we do so beginning now. We're going to take this a little bit slower than normal. And I want you to imagine yourself as a sacred being, taking the time to honor something amazing and great. And how do you usually do that? What are the rituals that you do? The complexity of them. So it is now with that energía of honor and reverence that we humbly approach our mind. And as we approach our mind, we invite it with breath In and out through our nose, starting now. To come into this time and this place. We'll pause here, and you can take as many breaths as necessary. To call in the intelligence of your mind. To show up as it is now, with who and what it is, irregardless of your judgments of it. And as you welcome your mind with that compassion, it might carry some of the judgments that you have of it into the circle. It might be leery of you because how you have related to it in the past. Keep breathing in and out through the nose. This calms down your vagus nerve. There you go. One more time. Inviting your mind into this time, into this place. Good. Beautiful. And now as we continue to breathe, we're going to take our second focused and intentional breath as we invite our body, this human vessel, our limbs, our bones, our tissues, our marrow, our cells, the nucleus of our cells, all our organs, everything that constitutes this physical body. As I'm saying that, just be aware if anything is coming up right now. As we're actually talking about your body, everything that goes into it to make you operate. And no matter how your body is or how you have treated it or your relationship to it, we humbly approach it now. And this humility is knowing we are no greater or lesser. So we come to our parts with the humility that the mind is not greater than the body, that the body is not greater than the essence, that you as a whole being are not greater than your parts. Muy bien. Now we can approach the body. So we will take our second breath starting now. In and out through the nose. And humbly invite our body to this time and place. And allow your body to come as is. Not the body that you're thinking of having when you lose that 5 or 15 pounds, or you've gained those 5 or 15 pounds of muscle, or whatever story you have of how right now it's not good enough. We are inviting it to you, to circleness, to sit with us, with you in this time, in this space. Muy bien. Okay. Seguimos. We continue. This last breath, we are going to invite our essence. And again, the reason that I use the word essence and not soul is because essence has that invitation of cohesiveness. So we are helping ourselves step into that a little bit more by the power of our words. Because as you know, we create life with breath, and that breath many times has words. Muy bien. So now we will take our third breath. Third, focused, intentional breath to invite our essence into this time and space. And we will do so now. In and out through the nose. Inviting our essence into this time and into this space. Once you have done so, just take the time to ease back into a natural breath and check in with yourself. How are you feeling? How's your mind feeling? How's your body feeling? How's your essence feeling? What is your mind thinking, your body thinking, your essence thinking? You don't have to have it figured out. Just stay curious and let them answer the call in their own way. Answer the invitation that you have given them in their own way to come together in this time, in this space, in this moment, now. Just breathe. Thank you, breath. For moving through us, through inspiring us, through welcoming us to create an intentional practice of inviting all of our parts, our intellect, our biology, our spirit, to all take part in this experience which we call life. And it is with that gratitude and that grace that we say thank you to all of our parts. And we will do so by taking 3 breaths again as we come out of this meditation. And we will start now, in and out through the nose. Thanking our essence for being in this time and space. In and out through the nose. Thanking our bodies for being in this time and space. In and out through the nose. Thanking our minds for being in this time and space. As we settle back into this time and space, outside of this meditative space, we rub our hands together, creating warmth, creating that biofeedback loop, feeling the warmth that our body creates, that fire that we have. Not only do we have wind as breath, but we have fire. And then placing those hands over our heart, not just to seal this practice, but to give ourselves warmth, to feel that nurturing of warmth. And as we receive ourselves from the invitation of ourselves, we bow to each other. Should they? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, this is Marita, one who catches lightning with the path of Ish. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you in the circle again soon. Have a beautiful, lovely week of practicing your 3 breaths. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.